Welcome to What's Treading with Tire Review. I'm Maddie Weiner, and on today's podcast, we're joined by Paolo Ferrari, President and CEO of Bridgestone North America. Paolo, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great being here.
Well, thank you. And so I know you joined Bridgestone North America as its President and CEO late last year. So how has your background in serving in executive positions in Europe and Latin America sort of helped you navigate this pretty challenging time in the North American tire market right now?
Yeah. Well, I actually formally joined early this year, mid-January. Announcement in December, but started basically January 15. And as you said, after about a month and a half, the crisis hit. But in a way, I feel privileged in a way because first of all, I worked in North America before in this industry. So even if I just set COVID aside for a second, I joined a market that I knew, a lot of customers I knew from before, because I spent here, I guess, 4.5 years in my prior career. I also, as you said, worked in Brazil and in Latin America out of Sao Paulo. So a lot of good friends down there as well. So I was a bit of a plug and play in this market, very, very happily so. Coming from Europe gave me another advantage in a way because in Europe, Bridgestone is not as big a leader as it is in the Americas, especially in North America. So in my, what was it, 3.5 years there, we had a very, very much a challenger spirit, right? I mean, when you're a leader, when you're a challenger, the market is a different thing. So being a challenger there, we were maybe even more aggressive in terms of innovation and just taking the company also into new domains. So I took that challenger spirit into also Bridgestone Americas, that is a bigger organization and more of a leader, and therefore I guess it's helping. It's helping us moving us the agenda forward in a much faster way. When it comes to COVID, I was also, in a way, had a very privileged angle as well. And the reason being that coming from the north of Italy, which of course was one of the biggest hotspots right after China, and having lived in New York for 10 years with a lot of friends there, those were big hotspots in the world, I saw this wave coming, and therefore I knew it was bad from day one. And I'm not saying that people underestimated it here, but if it's far away, you feel different about it, right? So we were very quick as a company to react and do everything we could to manage the crisis from both a safety point of view as well as an industry point of view. So this is probably one of the reasons why we did well. So again, both with the COVID angle and without the COVID angle, I'm happy I joined North America and Bridgestone Americas, and we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. So kind of speaking along those lines of, you transitioning to your position in North America, I know Bridgestone shut down its manufacturing for consumer and commercial tires, I think it was back in mid-March, and reopened its facilities in April and May. So how has the company and how have you, as its new leader, helped navigate supply and demand during this time? I'm sure there's ups and downs and it's been quite difficult.
No, it's been so. Of course, as a company, we have shut down plants. We shut down plants all the time, right? Maybe a week, but we've never shut down all the plants all at once and for such a long period of time. So it was truly extraordinary. So as much as you have a playbook for that, you don't really have a playbook for the extent to which we did it. So I think in terms of the decision making, believe it or not, it's relatively simple. You have a pandemic hitting, you clearly see a huge weakening in the demand signal, and you act. The decision of shutting down the plants was a big one. At the same time, as you know, we shut down plants all the time, right? Maybe 1 week, maybe actually I don't think we were shut down for 2 weeks. So shutting down so many plants all at once for so many weeks, it was unprecedented. I would say that the decision was relatively easy because you see the demand. The demand clearly, we had a clear sign that was weakening significantly. What impressed me is the way the team executed, because literally a decision made one day, and then in maybe a day and a half, we actually started to ramp down the plants and then shut down. So I was just amazed in how the team executed it. and also amazed on how eventually we ramped back up, because we didn't ramp up all the plants at the same time. It was a phased approach. Of course, rebuilding the inventories as the demand came back. So this whole shutdown and ramp up was so massive. And honestly, we executed flawlessly because we did shut down. We put in place all the safety protocols, which of course were needed as we ramped back up. And we were very close to our customers, still, supplying tires and doing pretty well. So it was extraordinary. We didn't really have a full playbook for the extent to which we had to do this. But again, knock on wood, because the crisis is not over yet, I think we've managed quite well.
That's great. And so you're saying, obviously, there's no pandemic playbook or whatever you want to call it, but you're saying, speaking with customers, distributors, dealers, you were able to kind of sense what the market needed at that time and ramp up. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the most important things we had to do is really to keep that customer intimacy, very high. We have great customer relationship and intimacy, of course, just in normal situations. With this one, we really came together. So the team was, including myself, I was having, calls with the CEOs of our biggest partners, and just sharing how we were managing the pandemic from a safety point of view, sharing our own best practices in a way, and sharing, of course, data around the demand. How do we see the market going, and continually adjust? I think it's been another proof of how important it is, that this relationship with our customers. It's important in everyday's business, and looking at the forecast and making sure that we supply the best we can. But during those times, and still today, it was key. So I'm very, very happy with, we always said that the tire industry, it's a relationship industry, right? We never really exactly know what that means, but maybe now during the pandemic, I understood it even more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yes, I completely agree with that statement. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. We'll come back to the coronavirus pandemic, but I was curious, Bridgestone recently published its mid to long-term business strategy with a huge focus on sustainability and being a mobility solutions provider. So how does Bridgestone plan to leverage digital technologies in realizing this vision? And maybe speaking from a North American perspective, but also, you've worked in other parts of the world too. So if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah. So yes, first of all, we're very excited because we have an incredibly well-aligned strategy globally, which is the one that you mentioned. We presented it as a group, not just as Bridgestone Americas, and that's exciting. We strongly believe as a company in sustainability in its broader sense, right? And I always try to explain to people that sustainability doesn't just mean the environment. The environment is a piece of it, of course, but there are all kinds of different areas of sustainability that we care about, including, of course, managing all of the stakeholders, our teammates, our partners, our customers, and in general, having more efficient systems, business models, operations. And in that context, of course, if we look at mobility, mobility today is pretty inefficient, as you know. I don't know if you own a car, but your car is, being parked basically 90% of the time, okay, as opposed to being used. There's a lot of empty trucks, driving around the US or Europe, since you were mentioning Europe. So our goal is really to contribute to a much more efficient mobility, a much more sustainable mobility, especially when it comes to fleet, which are becoming more and more important, of course, in this new mobility ecosystem, which we call the CASE ecosystem, right? Connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. So to do that, the digital technology is a key component, as you can imagine. And I think the beauty of having a global strategy is that the business model of fleets are more and more converging, right? So a fleet of planes, or a fleet of trucks, or a fleet of robo-taxis driving around New York or London or Nashville, basically have similar needs. They need to be more efficient. They need to, of course, be profitable, but they need to maximize uptime, minimize, of course, downtime, manage maintenance much more in a predictive way. So a tire platform, what we like to call, needs to be embedded into the systems, embedded into these other platforms, connected to these other platforms, and contribute to that efficiency in mobility. So obviously, the technology stacks behind this business model are very important. And as you can imagine, it's about a tire, a sensor, a connected tire to the vehicle, exchanging data, turning those data into insights, into applications for a fleet manager or even for an individual driver. Because the individual driver, after all, has similar need of a fleet, right? You don't want your car to break down. You want to be able to predict the maintenance of your car, continue to use the car as much as you can in a very efficient way. And so we really believe in that technology thread. We really believe in this technology stacks. More importantly, we believe in business models for fleet that eventually support a much more sustainable mobility. And therefore, our mind is always about what's good for society, is good for customers, and is good for business. So this is really a big, I would say, common thread in our own strategy, the strategy you mentioned that was presented recently.
So in talking about fleets, now just to clarify, you're talking about not only commercial, but also like consumer fleets of vehicles that.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
even airplanes, again, I always like the joke, we talk about CASE, again, as I said before, connected, autonomous, shared, and electric, which today the closest thing to a perfect CASE fleet is an airline. They are fully connected. They are flying autonomously 99% of the time. They are shared by definition. They're not electric yet, but if you went to CES last year, you saw a lot of big electric planes, right? So I think that this CASE fleet concept applies to trucks of all different sizes, applies cars, exactly as you said, but eventually it applies also to the individual driver. You as a driver would like to have potentially also with regards to a tire as a service model, whereby you don't have to worry every X years about your tires. Someone will take care of it and will give you the peace of mind in a way, right? So the business model is very similar. The technology stacks are very similar. Of course, as you go from an individual drivers all the way to a fleet of hundreds of trucks, it's a bit more sophisticated and complex. But I would say from a logical point of view, it's very similar.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, I'm wondering, how would you say tire dealers kind of fit into this sustainability formula? You mentioned CASE, and tires kind of as like a service. But can you kind of go into how you see the tire dealer, the independent tire dealer, fitting into this as technology evolves, as mobility evolves?
So first of all, I like to say that we think about this evolution. This evolution is coming. It's coming fast. But obviously, the traditional business with our dealers will stay for a while, right? So the dealers are a super important part of the ecosystem. We have our own retail stores, right, as well, and they are basically transversal in terms of value creation to everything that we just discussed, right? Because eventually those fleets need to be serviced. They need to be, again, in that ecosystem. So the dealer to us will be key for a while in the traditional sense because they are themselves closer to the customers, but clearly they need to evolve with this pace, with this trend, right? Because the vehicles that are coming into the stores are more and more sophisticated, right? So there's so much technology in the cars right now that they need to be serviced in a different way. They need to be equipped to serve more and more fleets because fleets will become an important part of this ecosystem even more than they are today. And therefore, they need to be providing those fleets a broader suite of solutions. Some of these solutions we may be providing ourselves directly to the fleet, but they still need to be serviced by the dealers. Other solutions may be provided better by the dealers, right? As sort of distributors, just like today they distribute tires for us, they can distribute software solutions. So I think it's about also the digitalization in the mindset, first of all, of the dealers, but also in terms of the service offering, because themselves, I go back to this concept of platforms. Themselves, they are a platform. And the new mobility, you have to think of a world of connected platforms. There will be a smart city platform. There will be a connected vehicle platform, multiple connected vehicle platforms. There will be fleet management solution platforms. There will be tire platforms, and there needs to be a retail platforms. And all these platforms will plug into each other for what eventually will be a very sustainable and efficient mobility. So the retail and the dealers in general have a huge play into this if they are able to grow with us also from a technology point of view.
Very interesting. Yeah. And it, at least from what you're seeing, your view on this, it has the potential to totally change tire retail.
In multiple ways. First, in the simple, not so simple way of servicing a customers through subscription platform, as you say, tires as service. Okay, because even just that, it's about a tire, but it's already about a connected tire, and everything that comes with it, includes in the predictive maintenance. You can basically manage that relationship in a predictive way and bring in customers in. But if you think about new electric vehicles. Okay, right now it's still a relatively small part of the car park, but as you know, the sales of electric vehicles are increasing dramatically in different rates in different parts of the world. Okay, but you will see an acceleration also in the US. And what we call the emerging OEMs, right? So the traditional OEMs are the GMs and the Fiat Chrysler and the Ford of the world, but you see every day a new emerging OEM coming, the Nicolas, the Rivian, the Fiskars, of course the Tesla is, I'm not sure we can call it emerging anymore, but all of these companies are technology companies. They're not car companies. And they are looking for partners in different ways, including, of course, a dealer network that is capable of servicing those cars in a different way, including, by the way, charging stations, right? And more in the future. So if a dealer puts him or herself into the mindset of looking at this broader mobility ecosystem of platforms, there are infinite opportunities. And by the way, none of us can do this alone. So in this world, it's about cooperation, co-creation, co-petition, you name it the way you want, but it's about understanding how this ecosystem is being created, which are the fundamental platforms, and which role do we play in these platforms. Maybe one example you may have seen, maybe a few months ago, we announced a partnership with Microsoft Connected Vehicle, right? Where the Bridgestone proprietary tire damage model is a model or a module into the Microsoft Connected Vehicle platform. That's another example of a platform that is made of different platforms. So I think in today's world, we need to think of platforms, and we need to understand which platform do we bring to the table in a collected effort to create a super sustainable and exciting new mobility.
Very interesting. And yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I haven't heard it explained that way before, but very cool, very interesting.
But I did say in the beginning that in the short midterm, there's still a lot of business in the traditional way. Yeah?
Of course.
As leaders, we need to think, beyond. But of course, we went through the crisis with our dealers. We're going through the crisis with our dealers in a traditional way, and it's still working.
For sure, yes. Now, I did want to ask you, kind of sort of switching gears a little bit. What do you see, looking into 2021, it's right around the corner. What do you see as the outlook for Bridgestone and, the rest, really, the health of the tire industry going into this new year?
So, I mean, when it comes to the demand linked to the pandemic and then the rebound, we're seeing the rebound now. At the same time, you follow the news as much as I do, probably more. We see the volatility that is still taking place, right? So the year is still uncertain, to be honest. With the last quarter, we done really well in the last quarter, but we don't know if this rebound will continue through the end. I think it will, but it's clearly slowing down a little bit. So everything is linked to the COVID cases, is linked to the vaccine, and so we have so many different scenarios of rebound that's what we should have, right? Because the volatility is high. But we do see clearly the rebound happening right now, continuing through 2021. 2021 will not get to the 2019 levels yet, with maybe the exception of the commercial business, the truck business, which has been more resilient, as you know. The consumer in 2021 will still be below 2019, not by much, but still not there. And the OEMs, of course, the traditional business that took the biggest hit this year, right? The car companies will bounce back a little stronger, but because of the hit, not yet to the 19 level. So we're seeing that rebound. Is it a V shaped? Is it a U shaped? I'm not going to get into that debate. It's coming, and we're capturing it. Um, but the important thing is also that within the general market, you have different segments that go at different speed. So as long as, like we do at Bridgestone, as long as we continue to focus on technology, and more and more on the more premium segment on the market, that market is being more resilient, still growing better than the rest. So we always believe in the mix. We believe in the premium segment, which evolves in definition, by the way. But I always say that the mix and the premium segment is about technology. It's about continuing to invest in technology, entire technology, in material science, in also R&D and production science that will allow us to manage always the trade-offs in the performance of the tires and turn them into trade-ons, work very closely with the OEMs and pushing each other on the technology. And this push, by the way, is now also moving into the digital component of that push and always keeping us ahead of the curve. So a long answer to a much easier question. Rebound is there. 221 will be better, but not quite to the level of 19. But if you focus on technology and on the right segments, there are more and more opportunities.
No, that's great to hear. And now, final question, Paolo. I really appreciate your time today, but I wanted to know what would you like your Bridgestone dealers to know about the company during this time?
So I think the crisis really proved how strong we are as a company, how resilient we are as a company, and for multiple reasons, because of course of our global scale. We are the #1 tire rubber company in the world, transitioning into a leader in mobility solutions. We got into the crisis with a very strong balance sheet, and therefore we were able to continue to invest in our business and not just cutting our costs to manage the crisis. So we keep on investing into our business, which means investing also in our dealers and in our partners. We have a very exciting new vision and new plan that you mentioned, Madeline, which is exciting because it's about continuing to invest and strengthening our core, but accelerating our journey into tire-centric solutions and into mobility solutions. And we would like our dealers to be part of that journey, because the dealers network and the retail network in general is an enabler for all three areas of our strategy: the tire business, the tire-centric solutions, and the mobility solutions. Of course, that requires innovation. It requires, also creativity. It requires, like I was saying before, understanding the business needs to evolve. I think the traditional business will still be there for a while, so I think it's good. But think of the world in terms of platforms, and where do I fit with the tire platforms, with the fleet platforms, with the retail platform, with the goal together to create value for society first, for customers. And if we do that, everything will be really good for business as well. So I think it's an exciting journey. It's a big transition. I think the COVID crisis is a fantastic opportunity for all of us, individually, as executives, as company, to really recalibrate and thrive. And again, like I said in the beginning of our conversation, I believe the crisis has been a disaster from many points of view, and just something we should never forget. But my spirit is always, okay, it is what it is, but it's a fantastic, fantastic opportunity, and Bridgestone was certainly right at opportunity.
Yes, very true. And it is, as you said, an exciting journey. So we will continue on the journey. But Paolo, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks so much again.
It's been a pleasure spending time with you guys, and hope to see you soon.